Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of this starter series for beginner wanting to learn WordPress in 2020. Just like I promised you in the last video, today we're going to be talking about setting up your local host and getting WordPress installed in 10 minutes or less. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go to Xampp, which is, you can either search it in Google or you can just go to apachefriends.org/index.html. And then you can just click whatever version is for your computer, let that download, and it's going to give you an installer. This is if you have antivirus running. It's in most cases it's not a big deal. You can disable your antivirus if you want. I'm going to continue with the installation. This is about user access controls. I'm not really too worried about that at the moment either. Okay, but if that's something that does mess up your installation, then it will be a slightly different process for you, but I've never had it mess with my installation. So in Xampp, you're just going to head and leave everything default. For our purposes, you're going to want to install it to the Xampp folder if one doesn't already exist on your computer, and choose your language. I'm going to stay in English, and then I don't really need to learn more about Benami for Xampp. In our particular case, we're going to do everything on our own, so let's just leave that way, and then we're going to install it. And now it's going to install into your computer, into your C drive if you're on Windows like I am. And so after this installs, I'll come back and move on to the next step. Come on. It's actually really not that long of an installation process. Maybe, I don't know, a couple minutes. Do it now. Do it now. Okay, so in the end of the completion, it's going to ask you if you want to open the control panel. In our particular case, we're going to say no just for the moment, because we are going to also get WordPress. So I also realized too that I'm not recording my top bar, which is kind of probably pretty irritating. I don't think I can adjust it either. So okay, so back in your browser, next thing you want to do is you're going to want to go to, let me just pull this down so you can actually see, since I didn't put it in the top bar stupidly. So this is the website for Xampp. Like I said, you can just search it in Google. The other one is WordPress.org. Remember I first talked about there being a .org and a .com version. We're going to go to the .org, and when you're at the homepage of the .org, it's going to look like this. And you're going to want to hit Get WordPress, scroll down, and download it as a zip folder. Okay, so you're going to want to download it, and when you download it, it's going to show up as a zip folder. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to extract it all, and that will take just a moment. WordPress is not a huge folder, so it'll be pretty quick. Okay, so after Xampp successfully installs, you're going to have a new folder inside your local C drive. Like I said, this is for Windows users. If you're on a different software like Linux or Mac, it's going to be very similar. You have an Xampp folder that's been created inside your local C drive. We're going to go into that, and then in here you're going to have all these files and folders. We don't care about any of these files right now, or any of these folders, except for one. This one right here, the AHT docs folder. This is the one that you want. You want to go in here, and this is all the projects that your local host can now access. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a new folder, and you're going to call this new site. Oh, well, I already have one because I already did this ahead. So you're going to have a folder called new site. And new site is now a new place where we can install a WordPress site. And yes, if you wanted to create others, you could create new site 2, new site 3, new site 4, and you could put the WordPress files in all of them, and you could create different WordPress sites for your local host machine. So we're going to go into the WordPress folder. We're going to press Control A on Windows, grab all of this, drag it, and we're going to copy it into this new site. And it's going to copy all these files into here. And now we've just pulled in a new WordPress installation, but you can't access it yet without a database. But here's something interesting. If you fire up your Xampp panel, and the way that we can do this is by opening the Start menu, typing Xampp, and you want the Xampp control panel. If you can't find it here, go into your Xampp inside your Windows system files and your program files and find the control there. Open the control, and it's going to give you this panel. This is your Xampp control panel. This is how you start up a local host. You hit Start on the Apache service and Start on the MySQL service. FileZilla we do not need. That is a transfer service. Mercury and Tomcat, we don't need either of those as well for this particular scope of this tutorial. And essentially all this is doing is creating a local server that can read PHP. By default, a regular computer can't do it. It's a web server that reads it, and so this creates a web server so we don't have to go out and buy one. We can work on all the WordPress sites we want on our local computer without having to actually buy a server. So now that those are started, you can minimize this. Okay, so now that we've installed our WordPress files here, all we have to do is open up a browser. I'm just going to open up Mozilla, and all you have to do is type in localhost / the name of the folder we created. So in this case, it would be new site, and hit enter. And it's going to give you the WordPress setup. This is because we put all those files in there. So you're going to hit continue on your language, and then it's going to ask you for a database. This is going to be the next thing we're going to create. And don't be scared, this is going to be something with the localhost. It's very easy to do. So you're going to open another tab, and you're going to type in localhost / php my admin. And this is going to take you to a server screen where you're able to, a database screen where you're able to create new databases that your WordPress can access. So we're going to create a new database by clicking the Databases tab. I'm going to set this to the very top if it's not set by default. And then I'm just going to type in new site. Generally, you don't want to name your database the same thing as your site, but in this case, since it's a local, we're just going to go for that. You don't want to do anything here. You want to go straight over to, now that it's been created, you want to go straight over to privileges, and we're going to create a new user account for this database. So in the username, we're just going to call this new admin. Well, that's okay. You know what, we'll just leave it as 2 Ds. And then you want to take this, and I'm going to put it in a notepad, so that's the user of the database. And also, I generally put the database's name first, so we know that the database name is new site. We know that the database's user is going to be new admin. You want to put them on the local host by selecting local from this drop down, and the password, we're going to type in the password. Let's just say password 12345, which is very weak. I know this. Password 12345. And also sometimes it's better to type it into your text field into here so that you know it's the same thing versus hand typing. You could have missed something and then it won't work. So there you go. Now your information is set up. We're just going to scroll down and hit go. The user will have been created, and then it's going to ask you if you want to give this user privileges on this database. This is all the things that they need to be able to do to this database. We're not going to grant widespread access though, just access to this database. Hit go again, and now the user has the rights to access this new site database we created. So back in our setup, we have a database name. Well, if you recall, that was the new site the database that we called new site. We could have named the database something else if we wanted to. The user is that user we created, and the password is the password we created. Database host is localhost. Remember, we set that as well. And the table prefix, just leave that as WP_. Submit, and if you did it correctly, you will get this screen right here that says you've made it to this part of the installation and it's ready to go. This means it's properly communicating with your database. So you're going to hit run the installation, and now it's going to ask for a site title. I think that in this case, we're going to build a very simple website, maybe a flower shop website or something like that. So I think I'm going to call this Bob Belfort's beautiful bouquets. All right, that's good. And then this part, it wants a username and a password for the WordPress. So you can call this whatever you want. Let's say that if it was Bob, we would say B Belfort main log or something like that. You could name the username whatever you want. Then you're going to want to save both of these as well to your text file. Okay, and that's it. Hit the installation. Oh, in this case, it wants an email address. Let's see. Let's just say Bob at localhost. Okay, and it's not going to go anywhere. This is just a test. But if you wanted to send your installations to somewhere real, you'd put in an actual email. And in this case, I'm not going to discourage search engines because we're building on a localhost. And run the installation. And that's it. You've actually created a WordPress site that now you can physically log into that's on your local computer. So if you know what we did here, we grabbed the username that we just created for the WordPress, not the database. They're two different things. And the password, and you log in. And you're now successfully on the dashboard of a new WordPress installation on your local machine. Now this is where we can start to play around with WordPress and get into themes and appearances and plugins and settings and all that, which we'll be doing in the next video. In the next one, we'll be diving a little bit into the basics and starting WordPress, and from there we're just going to keep adding on 10 minutes at a time until we have this thing ready to actually launch. So just like in the last video, go ahead and hit the subscribe, hit the bell, and if there's anything that I missed or anything that you'd like to see in the upcoming tutorials specifically, please leave it in the comments, and I'll do my best to respond and to actually take those into consideration as well. I know that 10 minutes is really short. So that's it for this tutorial, but I'll see you in the next one.